All right, Ryan Jarrell here for All Access MMA, and I have Sarah Kaufman on the show now, who's coming off a round 1 TKO victory over Jessy Miele at BTC 13. Sarah, how are you?
Yeah, I'm great, thanks. Great to talk to you.
Yeah, great to talk to you, and I'm really excited to have you on the show. I've always been a fan of watching you compete, obviously the former Strikeforce champion, and as we were talking a little bit before we went live here, it's been quite a while since all of the MMA fans out there have been able to see you compete. It's been 2 years. First, let's just start with the win over Jessy Miele. Really impressive first-round victory. That's got to feel pretty good, right?
Yeah, it feels amazing. Everything that we worked on, everything we wanted to accomplish in the fight happened, and my goal was to have a great time, ensure that I enjoyed the experience, and have the best performance that I could possibly have using every skill and technique that we've worked on and that I wanted to showcase. And very fortunate that it literally went exactly how I wanted it to go.
I saw in a previous interview that you did with my colleague James Lynch that you really wanted to land some of those elbows and get those on her. Were you able to do that? Did you land some vicious elbows?
I mean, I had envisioned these like ground and pound elbows where I was just gonna smash her face with my elbow. That's how I saw it going. But didn't happen. I smashed her just with my fist instead. Pleased with that, but I did manage to land a small elbow and then one kind of good connection on a right elbow off of kind of the clinch there. So again, I kind of checked that box for both ground and pound and landing elbows.
When you were going into this matchup with Jessy, when you look at her skill set, stylistically, did you feel like she was going to try and, implement a certain game plan against you? Like what do you think her course to victory was and what you need to do to obviously combat that?
Yeah, with Jessy, having watched her kind of last 2 fights and having known of Jessy for the last few years, kind of been on the same radar, being, not signed to a big organization and looking for our fight opportunities. Her name had come up quite a few times, and it just hadn't panned out until now. So having watched those fights with Julia Budd and Janae Harding in Bellator, I expected her to come in and probably strike a little bit harder than she did. I thought she was a bit more tentative than I had anticipated, but I thought her pathway to victory would have been using her kind of striking, trying to be a bit unorthodox in how that lands, using some speed, bullying in, potentially going for a takedown, but I wasn't super concerned about that. I just thought that she might try and use her size and her reach to her advantage to frustrate me into trying to get a win on her end.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you mentioned the size and the reach. You've primarily fought at bantamweight, but this fight was at featherweight. You've obviously fought at lightweight before as well. Did that even cross your mind as far as like fighting at a specific weight class? Did you feel the size would be a big disadvantage for you? It sounds like maybe that's not the case, just based on your confidence and what you ultimately did.
How the fight went, the size didn't play a factor, but I'd kind of be lying if I said that I wasn't thinking about it and having that on my mind when it came to accepting the fight and how the fight was going to go. I'm very confident in both my strength and my fitness and my strength in my technique. When I feel like I'm, maybe I don't bench press the most, but I feel when I do jiu-jitsu and wrestling, I'm strong. And so when this fight came about, I definitely had some concerns because I feel one of the largest reasons I lost the fight with Larissa was the fact that she was so much bigger than I was. And when we tied up, it wasn't that she was necessarily stronger, but just like the actual size of her body mass moving me felt like I was flying around, even though, push for push might not have been a big difference. So I definitely had to think about it and really consider, what do I want out of this sport? And out of the sport, I want to be the best that I can be. And for me, that is 135. However, I've also been sitting for 2 years with nobody willing to fight me. So did I really want to say no to this opportunity? I thought Jessy was a good matchup for me. Rob from BTC worked really hard to try and line up an opponent. And then my manager, Lance Spod, he's been working his butt off to try and get anyone and everyone trying to accept a fight. So we definitely sat down. We talked about it. We said, like, look, here are the pros, here are the cons. I thought that regardless of the actual number on the scale, that I would be strong enough to combat Jesse's, what advantage she might have in weight. And fortunately, I know she was about 17 pounds heavier than me in the cage, somewhere between 15 and 17, but I was confident that it wasn't 20 or 25, and that I'd be able to combat that with what I had brought to the table.
What do you walk around at these days? And ultimately, what will that cut be like for you to get back down to bantamweight? Will it still be fairly easy?
Yeah, I could make bantamweight tomorrow if I needed to. I've really dialed in since kind of the summer of 2020, when I went and spent some time in Las Vegas, down at Syndicate. I was there trying to be on hand that if a fight came up, I'd be able to step in. And I've kind of been that professional since then, that I'm putting myself in a situation where if anything comes up, I'm in a place where I'm fit enough and my weight's low enough that I could make weight on a day's notice if need be. And so I'm sitting around like 146, 147 almost all the time right now, just for those opportunities.
That is perfect. Yeah, well, that sounds great as far as moving forward too. And you've been at this for a really long time now. You're a veteran, one of the most well-known female fighters that we've had in mixed martial arts. And I'm just curious, with being away from the sport for 2 years, did you feel like any type of nerves, or was it any different walking down to the cage? I mean, you've done it so much now. I'm just curious if you felt that at all from that long layoff.
Literally, I felt none of that. I don't know. As I say, this was the most probably relaxed and joyful and enjoyable experience that I've had in the cage. And I think part of that is I made a conscious decision to enjoy the process. I made the decision to smile, to like enjoy my walkout song, have a good time. Like I didn't like totally let loose, but I don't know. I assumed that I would be a lot more nervous maybe than I normally am. And if anything, I was way less. I'm normally pretty stoic and don't get super stressed out, but there's always the pressure of, you want to win. Everyone's there because they want to win and they think they can win. And so there's always the kind of like the people talking on your shoulder of, why are we doing this? We already have a good record. You've already done so much in the sport. Why are you risking a loss? You're taking a chance and a risk by going up a weight class. Maybe she's going to be really heavy and really strong. And, you have these negative things that can kind of talk you out of it sometimes. But then you have the positive things of, I love fighting. This is what I've worked hard for. I know that I'm as ready as I can be. I've taken all the steps and I haven't cut any corners to make sure that I'm as prepared as possible for this opportunity. And at the end of the day, a loss is, I guess, embarrassing for yourself because you could have done better. But a win, it just really culminates like everything you've done to this point. And it's always worth it to put yourself on the line. And I don't know, I just feel like I've backed myself and I'm in this mental place now where this is for me, this is for nobody else. And I know that I don't have that many more years and that many more fights because I'm 36. It's not like I'm not 20. I don't have 15, 16, 17 more years of fighting. I have maybe a few if I can get the right opportunities. And so I just wanted to enjoy this experience. And I think that really translated into the performance and into the fact that I didn't have a lot of nerves. I just had a great time.
Well, you literally just answered my next question was, how much longer do you envision yourself doing this? And you've made it no secret that you want to be competing at the highest of levels, which is the UFC. You were at the UFC. I mean, you fought some of the best fighters in the world. One thing I don't know that I know the answer to this, so I was hoping you could clarify. Why did the UFC actually cut you? Because you lost a split decision to Valentina Shevchenko. That was your last fight in the promotion. It seems like they want to keep someone like yourself around. Did you ever get any clarity as to why they moved on from you?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't technically get cut. I just fought out my contract, and they didn't renew it. So it's one of those things where I think it was probably a culmination of factors, like the landscape of who was in the division at the time, my performances, the fact that, I wasn't stepping out and doing something aside from just the fights themselves to do extra promotion to garner extra eyeballs. Like I don't have an OnlyFans page. I don't have, a lot of the photo shoots that some of the girls were doing at the time. And I don't know, that I'm sure there were other factors that went into their decision as well to not keep me. I think one of the biggest factors is that I am a tough fight for every fighter on the planet, but I'm also not someone who's going to talk trash. I'm not going to, I'm not going to make a big scene of something. I'm going to speak my truth. And if I have something to say, if I don't like someone, I'll say that. And if that garners attention, great. But I'm not going to make up a storyline to try and sell myself. And so I think because of that, a lot of the girls were just saying no to fight me. And in some ways, the matchmakers are like, well, why do we want to keep someone who nobody's willing to fight? Like literally at one point with Sean Shelby years and years ago, he went through the roster and said, well, this person can't, this person can't, this person can't. Literally went through every single name on the roster, and was like, I don't know what to do. Like no one will fight you. So that was kind of the situation we were in. And hopefully moving forward, the current division at 135, they need new names. I'm a name who hasn't fought, aside from Miesha Tate, I don't think I've fought anyone in like the top 10 or maybe even the top 15, because so many people who I've fought have either switched divisions or have retired or have been released or whatever that looks like. So these are now fresh matchups. So there's no reason why I shouldn't come in and just wreak havoc on this 135 division.
Yeah, and you were supposed to fight Amanda Nunes in 2014 in Canada, right? And unfortunately, that fight never came to fruition. If you got the chance to fight Amanda now, obviously she's considered the consensus women's GOAT of MMA, and she looks terrifying inside of the cage, running through the majority of her opponents, fairly easily. How would a fight with Nunes right now go between you two? How do you envision it in your head?
I mean, it's something that I just know, like for years, that's a fight that I've wanted. Since we fought in Strikeforce, honestly, I've always just was like, Amanda Nunes and I would have a great fight. And I think that one of her biggest strengths right now is she's found her range and she hits girls and she hits them with like nasty intentions. She's not touching people just to see what it's like. She goes out there and right from the bell, she starts fast. And I always think that she's had one of the best first rounds in the division and maybe, for most of the female fighters that are out there. And so it's managing and starting right off the bat and holding your own and finding those holes and those crevices and fitting your game into what she's really good at and, avoiding the things that you don't want to be on the end of those kind of like long, hard punches that she throws. So I definitely think that stand-up wise, it would be a great fight. I think wrestling and jiu-jitsu wise, it would be a great fight. And it's just one that I know that I can win and that I can be that number one. And I'm looking forward to the opportunity of kind of working my way there, getting my name back in the mix and getting that opportunity.
Yeah, and this last fight with BTC, that was just a one-off fight. You're not stuck to a contract, so you're a free agent right now. Kind of makes sense with the UFC wanting to, continue to grow the women's division to bring you back. Has there been any talks? Like, has your manager said, like, okay, maybe after this fight with BTC, if you go in and you run through Jessy, which you did, maybe they're going to bring you back? Can you give us any insight as far as to the UFC's potential interest?
Yeah, I'm not sure, honestly. My job has been to try and get a fight, try and get a win. And I know that kind of, as I say, 2020, that was one of the big things is, generally most organizations don't want to bring you in coming off of a loss. So trying to find an opponent where I could have not just a win, like I didn't want just a win, regardless if that's the box you need to check. That wasn't the only thing I wanted to check. I wanted to have a win, but a dominant win against a tough opponent who also has name value and who's fought other good people. I'm not at a point in my career where I want to be fighting, people who have losing records or who aren't also trying to be the best in the world, I guess I should say. And I have nothing, like if people want to do that as their career and they want to kind of be journey people and just fight for the sake of fighting, that's on them. But I want to be fighting people who think they can be the best. So when I beat them, it means that much more. And so that was my goal and my job in this fight. And it's kind of Iridium and Lance. It's their jobs to figure out what's next and what that looks like and do all the talking for me. And I'll do the talking with my performances.
Okay, very good. I wanted to get your input too on Kayla Harrison and maybe what you think, people are going to see from her moving forward. I mean, geez, I feel like if I was in her shoes, I would want to be in the UFC. I mean, the best of the best are in the UFC right now, and competing against someone like Amanda or Valentina. I mean, she's a little bit smaller than Kayla, but how good do you feel like Kayla could be if she does sign with the UFC? Could she beat Amanda? I mean, just when you look at her style, like how good do you think she could be?
It's tough. I mean, she's looked good in her fights. I didn't actually see her like the finals of the PFL, but it depends on what she wants, because with the PFL, she's getting paid way better than the UFC is going to pay her right now. She's making, $1 million just for the championship, plus she's getting paid really well for her previous fights. And a lot of them are not the highest level elite females. So if you're getting paid that much to get to do what you love to do, I think it just depends on what our goals are. If I were her, I would stay with the PFL, because they're bringing people in specifically for her. They are bringing in some good people, but the 155 division is pretty thin. And so you're bringing in people who are 145ers or potentially even 135ers into this division. And she's getting the opportunity to look really good, to work on her skill set and still continue to grow and get better. So I think that she's done a great job of having good matchups and taking each fight as it comes and putting on really good performances. But when it comes to fighting Amanda, I'm not sure. Like, they train together at least some of the time at ATT, and so I'm not sure how that training goes or how that fight would go, because once you get those higher elite level fighters that are also similar size to you, it's going to change how she performs, and she's not going to look quite as impressive against those like upper echelon fighters potentially in the UFC like Amanda, that she would with some of the people that she's fought currently.
Yeah, I think the fight that a lot of people have been wanting to see is her and Cyborg, but we'll see what happens moving forward. And, if she stays with PFL or joins another organization. I also just wanted to get your take on training right now. Obviously, Zuma being your home gym. You mentioned being out at Syndicate. You were training with Joanna Wood, formerly Calder Wood. Now it's just Wood because she's married, and Lupi Godinez as well. What is that dynamic going to be like moving forward? Are you going to go back and forth, or are you just going to stay primarily at Zuma?
I think I've always been, and Zuma and Adam Zuzek, my coach, we've always been pretty open to working with other people and other athletes and other coaches that are going to make me better. And I used to never think that training with females made a difference. If you had good training partners, men or women, it didn't matter. If they're good training partners, they're good training partners. And I've come to realize that definitely training with high level elite females changes your game and makes you better. So for years I've brought fighters in. I've brought Julie Kedzie up. I've brought Holly home, and Joanne's come up. And I've gone down to other places to work with different athletes. So I'm very fortunate to be in that situation. The fact that Lupi Godinez is, she's just on a tear right now, taking every fight in any fight, and I love her for it. So she's really close to me, which is great. So I've worked with her quite a few times over the last few years, and I'll continue to do so. And depending on what I need for my camp, Syndicate's a great place to go. It's really easy to get to in terms of going to Vegas, and then I have awesome training partners when I go there. So I'll continue to kind of go back and forth and go help people for their camps, and then go down there for my camps, or have people come up and piece together what's going to make the overall, the kind of like the best camp for me.
Makes sense. And last question for me: if you do get a short notice fight, or if you get a chance to sign with the UFC or Bellator or another just giant promotion, you're going to try and fight again before the end of the year, or were you thinking maybe early 2022?
I'd love to fight again right away. I mean, I'm in shape. I didn't take any damage. My body didn't take any damage. Everything feels great. So I'd love to take another fight. And I kind of said one of the reasons I took this fight with BTC was I kind of set a goal for myself that if I didn't have a fight by the end of 2021, I'd consider kind of calling it quits and not pushing so hard because 2.5 years without a fight where you're doing everything you can in terms of your nutrition and your training and your calling people out and your managers trying everything they can and all these promotions want you, but we can't find opponents to fight me. It was getting to the point where, that was definitely a factor. And so the fact that we were able to sneak this one in made a big difference for me because it definitely was like, okay, we're on the right path. Hopefully this can continue, get some momentum. Again, a big win over Jessy with BTC, and now hopefully we can look forward and keep more of an eye out for what bantamweight fights are coming up. Because now, if they need someone, I have a win. I'm healthy. I know I can make weight, and so I should be the first one that they call because I'm going to always bring an exciting fight, and I'm looking to come get that win and kind of make that second wave count even more.
No doubt. It wouldn't surprise me in the least if the UFC signs you any day now. Again, Sarah, congratulations on the win. Round 1 TKO over Jessy Miele at BTC 13. Before I let you go, I want to give you the floor. Tell people where to follow you on social media. And if there's anyone you want to thank, any sponsors, the floor is yours.
Yeah, I mean, first thing I really want to thank is Lance because he did so much work with Iridium and with promoters and promotions over the last few years trying to get me a fight, staying positive, trying to keep me positive, saying, look, we're going to get you something. It's going to work out. So I'm really grateful for the work that he's put in for essentially no pay since I've had no fights. And hopefully that changes moving forward and we can make each other a lot of money here. But on top of that, my team at Syndicate, all the people that I was able to train with down there, all the coaching staff, my team at Zuma, who've been with me the whole time, Adam Zuzek, Russ McCumber came out and was like the best warm-up partner ever. He just let me beat him up. I know that that's coming back to me this week in my own training because he was letting me do what I needed to do to be as prepared as possible. And then I'm very fortunate that I had some really good sponsors, some local companies. I had MGM Mechanical, TCF Contracting, I had Dark Horse Farms, fuel supplements in Victoria at the Belmont location, and then a local doula named Emily who also stepped up and kind of made it possible for me to do the traveling I needed to and get this camp covered cost-wise. So I'm so grateful for everyone who's supported me. And Instagram, I'm Sarah Kaufman MMA. Twitter, I'm MMA Sarah. You can find me on Facebook, but I probably won't check it because I don't like it. And just stay in touch and definitely hoping to get some big opportunities coming up now that we have some momentum and we can move forward.